Boa noite, pessoal. Espero que todos estejam bem. É um prazer estarmos juntos novamente com a Miss Colleen, né? Para mais um Bear Talk. Hoje a Miss Colleen vai estar falando um pouquinho para a gente sobre um assunto bastante importante, sobre o Continuum, na verdade. E I would like to make you welcome, Miss Colleen. Thanks for being with us here, all the way from Canada. And we're excited to hear more about you. I know a lot of people remember you and know about you, but it would be great if you could introduce yourself a little bit, short introduction. And then whenever you're ready, we'll be happy to hear what you have to share with us.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you well.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Felipe, for introducing me, and good evening, parents and families. Some of you may remember me from the fall when I gave a bear talk, and it's my pleasure to return to Maple Bear Santo Andre for a second time and to see the tremendous growth that teachers have demonstrated over the last few months. As some of you know, I reside in Winnipeg, Canada, which was kind of where Maple Bear began, which is kind of cool. And I'm an educator. I have over 35 years of experience. I have been a classroom teacher at multiple levels. I was a curriculum consultant for a large school division for about 7 years. And then I became a school administrator, and I took care of middle school and elementary school. So I'm currently a trainer for Maple Bear Global School, supporting teachers with Maple Bear philosophy and methodology. At Maple Bear, we care if your child is developing behaviors and skills necessary to help them become successful citizens in life. Tonight, I will be sharing with you a presentation on Learning Continuums. And at the conclusion, I will be answering a few questions that have come forth on the topic. So that's my introduction. And should I start the presentation now?
Let's do it. Let me put on it.
Okay.
There you go. Can you see it?
Okay. So as I mentioned, our topic is learning continuums, and some of you may be unfamiliar with this topic, but I hope by the conclusion that you have a fairly good understanding. So what is a learning continuum? A continuum is like a growth chart. It describes the typical path that second language learners, readers, and writers follow from early toddler to the end of middle years. Maple Bear programs describe how to teach strategies and skills. Continuums list the important behaviors or building blocks of these strategies. A continuum is an assessment tool that it supplies us with important behaviors to notice and support for planning and instruction in acquiring a second language, for acquiring reading and writing skills. It helps us to give specific feedback to students based on our observations, conversations, and products that we collect. And I will explain more about that as we move along. Continuums involve students in their learning, and it gives them a chance to self-assess where they think they are at in their learning. And continuums also help us in the reporting to parents. There are 4 basic concepts of a continuum. For example, boy, this slide is very light. I have to turn it down. A continuum states what a student can do. Behaviors are stated in a positive way. The reason for that is that it sets a positive tone in teaching and assessing, which is so important in motivating students. So these are 2 examples. One is an example of listening at the toddler stage. A continuum would list a positive statement, such as, The child listens and follows one-step instructions. For example, stand up, sit down, rather than a negative statement, such as cannot yet follow simple one-step instructions. In elementary, reading continuum is one of our continuums there. And a positive statement would be, the child knows most letter names and some letter sounds, rather than just simply does not know letters yet. So that is one purpose and one way that we look at a continuum. The second is the emphasis is what the students learn rather than what the student is taught. So in speaking at nursery stage, for example, the focus is on what the learner can do. So can the learner respond to greetings with simple phrases instead of what the teacher does? The child would respond only when directed by the teacher. It gives some purpose for the child. In the beginning stage in elementary, in reading comprehension, we can focus and look to see if a child begins to self-correct, rather than the teacher self-correcting when directed during guided reading. Okay, the third. The stages in a continuum are approximate. For example, in junior kindergarten, when children are learning about the concepts of print, we could say points to the title and author of the book on the cover. Some behaviors mastered would be is not able to recognize the author on a book yet. So again, we're looking at the positive and what behaviors the child has mastered. In year 4, a student could be a Maria in reading. We could say that she has mastered the expanding stage, and I'll give some examples of that further on, rather than the bridging stage. So parents have an idea of where their child is, but it's an approximation. A child could go slightly up and down the continuum, depending on if they've been away for an extended period of time, for example. They may need more practice in a particular reading skill, etc. Reading and writing and acquiring a second language are complex processes. In the development of reading attitudes, I don't know if you can read, I'm sorry, it's in white there, it's not coming across fairly clear, but it goes from the highest, from the lower level where a child would demonstrate an eagerness to read. That could be at the ages of 4 to 6. The developing level would be the ages 5 to 7, where a child begins to read independently for short periods of time, perhaps 10 to 15 minutes, and discusses favorite reading materials with others. As we move up in the years to ages 6 and maybe 6 to 8, they might be beginning to read independently or be able to choose material independently. They are able to learn and share information from reading. Then probably by the end of year 4, a child should be able to read silently for increasingly longer periods of time. So it's like a growth chart, and children move along this based on their own individual abilities. Okay, this is an example of an early childhood continuum. It's one of many of the continuum frames in early childhood, but you'll notice along the top bar that it begins with toddler, into nursery, junior kindergarten, and senior kindergarten. So these give the desired outcomes that children should be demonstrating by the end of their time in those areas. And there is a different scale for listening, speaking, vocabulary, fluency. And it also expands into things like gross motor skills, fine motor skills, language acquisition, etc. And again, this is an early childhood example. So if we look at listening, they're only beginning to listen to the teacher with guidance in toddler. But by the time they get to senior kindergarten, they should be able to listen attentively to an English speaker and follow multi-step directions. So it's very nice to see that progression or that growth that the children should be taking. Continuum stages in reading. This would be an example of an elementary continuum. And again, I'm sorry that the white there is very difficult to see, but from what it says emerging, developing, beginning, and expanding. So these are behaviors that a child would move through in early in the year, there is one set of continuum outcomes, and later in the year in elementary, there's another set of outcomes that the teacher would be looking at and seeing where the child is on that continuum. So determining where children are on a continuum, how do we do this? There are 3 ways of collecting evidence of student learning behavior and student learning. So for example, on a regular basis, we call it almost daily classroom assessment. Teachers observe student learning behaviors and language acquisition by using anecdotal notes. If they see something the child is demonstrating, they would simply put their date on a piece of paper and a very objective statement about their observation. Teachers may have checklists of things that they are looking for in a particular lesson, and they can use this to collect evidence. In early years, they can also use audio tapes to hear how the child is speaking, and of course, videos and photographs to show what they are learning. So there are many ways to gather that evidence. Another way of gathering evidence is through conversations. Teachers collect evidence of student learning behaviors through interviews, talking with the students, through conferences to see how they are doing in a particular area. And notes are kept in written form or electronically, so we can go back and see specifically what the child has done over a period of time. We also collect products in JK through elementary, and they collect dated work samples that students have produced. Now, products can span a wide range of things, but these are just a few examples. So writing folders, literature responses, running records, a solution to a math problem, a research project, or paper and pencil tests. They are all products that demonstrate the student level of learning. And learning continuums. They are used to find out what students already know and can do. They are used to help students improve their learning. If teachers know what needs to happen next, they will be able to come up with the best strategies to support the learner. And learning continuums are used to let students and parents know how much they have learned within a prescribed period of time. I hope that this presentation has provided you with a greater understanding of what learning continuums are and how they are used both daily and as formal assessment tools. And I know, Mr. Felipe, you have a few questions for me.
I do. Thank you so much for covering 50 minutes or even less, 10 minutes, such a difficult subject, something so complex, but still you were able to give us a sense of how children and Canadian education at Maple Bear are assessed. And it is wonderful to know that we're not only looking for just one thing, right? Just improving only one thing, we're getting to one place, but assessing continuously, and that's
Yes.
what the continue is all about.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, being able to help the children along the way to reach
Yes.
to reach where we want them to be. And this is great. Thank you so much. I know when we
You're
first
welcome.
talked about it, you said, I should have a week to talk about this, and I don't think I would cover it all. But this is great. I do have 3 questions.
Okay.
So the first one, do students have a continuum every year? So do they have a new continuum every single year?
No, they don't. The continuum follows them from one year to the next year. So a teacher would have their continuum, and they would highlight on the continuum where the child is at the end of toddler, nursery, etc. And that information is passed along to the next level teacher so that they will have a good understanding of where the child is. The continuum shows in early childhood, it shows the desired outcomes of where the children should be at the end of the year in each level in early childhood. Some children may not have reached that desired learning outcome for their level. However, they are still practicing learning behaviors that will improve their growth and move them along the continuum. In elementary, in reading, for example, there are indicators for the beginning of the year for each level and another for the end of the year. The terms, we use those to really get a good grasp of whether the child is fluent in the reading under that bridging sign. If they're bridging, which means partially meeting expectations, or still working toward the outcome. So it's ongoing, and it follows them throughout their time from toddler to middle years.
I noticed in your presentation, you thought we couldn't see, but we're able to see that there was a range for most things, right? So the white part, there was a range. So
yes.
So some things some kids might be able to reach earlier, while some might take some more time, and some of the goals they're supposed to reach. Is that it?
Exactly.
Would that be right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And I know parents, they're like, well, this is great, but how do I know where my child is in the continuum?
Okay. Teachers use the evidence from the learning continuums to write the report from parents. It gives us such a rich understanding of the child as a whole child. And the evidence that we collect over time, we believe it's fair and gives a very valid indication of the children's skills. So again, we have conversations, we have observations that we've collected, and products. So we have a rich collection of evidence to help us report and give a fair and accurate evidence of where the children are on reporting time.
I think fair would be a great word to describe this assessing process, right?
Yes.
And the third and last question that I have, so if my child is not meeting the expectations of the continuum, right? So the child's it's not where they're supposed to be. What will the school do?
That's a very good question. I mentioned daily assessment. Teachers are daily assessing the children. So an important aspect of daily assessment is sharing the learning progress with the students, letting them know where they are in very student-friendly language. The teachers can show them where they are on a learning continuum and provide them feedback about what they are doing well, and then to provide them strategies for how they can improve their learning. When students are acquiring new skills and knowledge and understanding, they need many chances to practice or time to learn over time, which helps them to grow and improve and progress along the learning continuum. So it's a snapshot, but they keep moving, which is such a wonderful visual to see the whole child in how they're learning.
Oh, this is great. Can I say that the continuum allows the school, the teachers, and the students and families, of course, to personalize how each child will be helped
Yes.
to move along, to learn. And would that be right?
Yes, it's not a final mark that just ends at the end of the year. It's the skills that where they're at, and the next teacher will be able to build on those as the child moves forward.
Oh, this is great. Well, thanks for asking for answering these questions. Thanks for your time again.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been my pleasure. It's been a great week and a few days, and I've really enjoyed and will continue to enjoy the rest of my time here.
Yes, and we're always very glad and happy when you come, and we get sad when you leave.
Yes,
and
me too.
I really do hope we get to do many more bear talks next few months, and have you help our staff to grow and learn, and how to do what is best, and provide the best education there is in the world for all the students at Maple Bear.
Well, thank you very much for having confidence in me to share with parents tonight.
Thank you. Pessoal, obrigado. Uma boa noite. Mais uma vez, obrigado, Miss Colleen, pelas instruções, né? Pelo que nos ensinou hoje. E desejo a todos uma ótima noite. Tchau, tchau.
Bye-bye. Good night.